Right now, as you're listening to this, there is a silent war happening inside your mind. You're trying to focus on these words, but a ghost is pulling at your sleeve. It's the email you didn't send. It's the awkward thing you said in that meeting 3 days ago. It's the low-level hum of anxiety about the what-if of tomorrow. In America, we've been sold a lie that a busy mind is a productive mind. We wear our mental load like a badge of honor, but in reality, it's a slow-burning fuse. Most people think their racing thoughts are just who they are. They aren't. It's a glitch in your psychological software. But what if you could reach into the machine and flip the switch to silence? What if inner peace wasn't a mountain you had to climb, but a skill you could install? Today, we stop surviving the noise and start mastering the art of the quiet mind. Before we dive into the psychology of silence, if you're ready to reclaim your mental real estate, hit that subscribe button for Mindset Audiobooks. We're building a community of high-performers who choose clarity over chaos. If this resonates with you, leave a quiet in the comments below. Introduction: The Psychology of the Settled Soul. Welcome to the Art of a Quiet Mind, how to find inner peace through psychology. This isn't just a collection of feel-good quotes. This is a psychological roadmap designed for the modern American mind. We live in a society built on the attention economy. Every app, every notification, and every breaking news alert is designed to keep your mind in a state of high-alert turbulence. Psychologically, your brain is operating on hardware designed for the savannah, trying to process software built for the 21st century Silicon Valley. This mismatch creates a static, a constant mental noise that drains your battery before noon. In this audiobook, we are going to explore the intersection of positive psychology, neuroscience, and cognitive behavioral principles. We will dismantle the traps of productivity guilt and rumination loops. Over the next 10 chapters, we will move from the why of mental noise to the how of absolute psychological stillness. You are about to learn that a quiet mind isn't an empty mind. It's a powerful, focused, and unshakable mind. Chapter 1: The Mental Turbulence Trap. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in the middle of Times Square at noon. The lights are blinding. The crowds are pushing past you from every direction, sirens are wailing in the distance, and dozens of digital screens are screaming for your attention. It's loud. It's chaotic. It's overwhelming. Now, imagine that you leave the city. You drive for hours until you reach a cabin in the woods of Maine or a quiet stretch of beach in the Carolinas. You step out of the car, shut the door, and walk into the silence. But here is the problem. Even though the city is 300 miles behind you, the noise is still there. The sirens are still wailing inside your chest. The digital screens are still flashing behind your eyelids. The crowd is still pushing. Only now, the crowd consists of your own thoughts, your own regrets, and your own never-ending to-do list. This is the American condition in the 21st century. We have mastered the art of external productivity, but we have become refugees in our own minds. Most of us are living in a state of mental turbulence, and the scariest part? We've started to believe that this turbulence is normal. In psychology, we call this constant internal chatter cognitive overload, but I want you to think of it as the mental turbulence trap. Turbulence is what happens when a plane flies through unstable air. The plane is fine, the engines are working, but the ride is jarring. You can't focus on your book, you can't enjoy the view, you're just gripping the armrests, waiting for the shaking to stop. For the average person listening to this, your life has become a series of gripping the armrests moments. You wake up, and before your feet even hit the floor, your brain has already opened 40 different tabs. Did I reply to that Slack message? Is the economy going to tank? Why did I say that stupid thing to my boss yesterday? I need to get gas. I need to lose 10 pounds. I'm behind. I'm always behind. This isn't just stress. Stress is a response to a specific event. Mental turbulence is a chronic state of being. It is the static on the radio that never goes away, preventing you from hearing the music of your own life. To understand how to quiet the mind, we have to look at the hardware. Neuroscientists have discovered a system in your brain called the default mode network, DMN. Think of the DMN as your brain's screensaver. When you aren't actively solving a math problem or focusing on a specific task, like when you're folding laundry, driving a familiar route, or trying to fall asleep, the DMN kicks in. In a healthy, balanced mind, the DMN is where creativity happens. It's where we process our identity. But in a mind trapped in turbulence, the DMN becomes a rumination engine. Instead of reflecting on your life, your brain begins to loop. It scans your past for mistakes and your future for threats. In the US, our culture of high-performance has accidentally overtrained this network. We have taught our brains that if we aren't worrying, we aren't prepared. We've turned our internal screensaver into a horror movie that plays on repeat. To escape a trap, you first have to see the bars. The mental turbulence trap is held together by 3 specific psychological pillars. 1. Thought dependency. We have become addicted to thinking. This sounds strange, doesn't it? But notice what happens when you have 30 seconds of nothing. You're standing in line at a Starbucks in Chicago or waiting for the elevator in an office in Dallas. What's the first thing you do? You reach for your phone. Because the silence feels heavy. We have lost the ability to simply be without mental stimulation. We use thinking as a way to avoid feeling. As long as we are worrying or planning, we don't have to face the underlying restlessness. This is thought dependency. Your brain has become a stimulation junkie, craving the next hit of information or the next spike of cortisol from a fresh worry. 2. Emotional amplification. When your mind is turbulent, your emotions don't stay at a level 5. They jump straight to a level 10. Because your mental space is already crowded, a small bump feels like a crash. A minor critique from a coworker doesn't just feel like feedback, it feels like a threat to your entire career. A slight disagreement with your spouse feels like the end of the relationship. The turbulence magnifies the emotion. As the Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." In the United States, we are seeing record levels of affective overreactivity. This is just a fancy way of saying that because our minds are so noisy, we can no longer distinguish between a small problem and a catastrophe. 3. Attention fragmentation. This is the scatter effect. In the modern US workplace, we are told we are multitasking. Psychology tells us that multitasking is a myth. What we are actually doing is context switching, and every time you switch, you leave a little bit of your attention residue behind. By 2 p.m., your attention is shredded. You are physically present at your desk or with your kids, but 20% of your mind is on your email, 10% is on the news, 30% is on a past regret, and the remaining 40% is just trying to survive the next hour. You are living a fragmented life. Let's bring this down to earth with an example many of you know all too well. It's 3:15 a.m. You are in your bed in a quiet house. There is no external noise. The world is at peace. But inside your head, there is a full-scale board meeting going on. The director of finance is screaming about your mortgage. The director of social relations is analyzing a text message you sent at dinner, wondering if the K at the end sounded too aggressive. The director of future scenarios is busy building a 3D model of your life falling apart in 5 years. You try to tell yourself, just go to sleep. But you can't. Because you are trying to use more thinking to stop the thinking. You're trying to use the very tool that created the problem to solve the problem. This is the trap. You cannot think your way into a quiet mind. You have to psychologically pivot out of the turbulence altogether. We have to be honest about the environment we live in. If you are based in the US, you are living in the most aggressive attention grabber in human history. Our economy is no longer just about goods and services, it's about attention. Every app on your phone was engineered by some of the smartest psychologists in the world specifically to keep your mind turbulent. Because a quiet, content mind doesn't click on ads. A quiet mind doesn't impulse buy things it doesn't need at 11 p.m. The turbulence isn't just a personal problem, it's a byproduct of a system that profits from your distraction. When you decide to quiet your mind, you aren't just doing a wellness exercise. You are performing an act of rebellion. You are reclaiming the most valuable property you own, your consciousness. So, how do we begin? The first step in the art of a quiet mind is a concept from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, called metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about thinking. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river. The river represents your thoughts. For most people, they are in the river. They are being bashed against the rocks, pulled under by the current, struggling to catch their breath. They are the turbulence. A quiet mind begins when you step out of the water and sit on the bank. You still see the river. You still see the thoughts. The "I'm not good enough" thought, the "I forgot the milk" thought, the "what if I fail" thought. But you are no longer in them. You are the observer. This is the fundamental shift. We aren't going to stop the thoughts. That's impossible. As long as you are alive, your brain will produce thoughts. The goal is to change your relationship to them. To move from being the victim of the noise to being the space in which the noise happens. Think about your commute tomorrow. Usually, it's a time of high turbulence. You're frustrated with traffic, you're rehearsing your day, you're listening to a podcast at 1.5x speed just to keep up. Tomorrow, I want you to try the observer's commute. When you feel that spike of annoyance at the car that cut you off, don't try to not feel annoyed. Instead, say to yourself, "I am noticing a thought of annoyance." By adding those few words, "I am noticing," you create a psychological gap. In that gap, the turbulence loses its power. You have moved from the river to the bank. The core lesson of this first chapter is this: your mind is like a snow globe. When you are stressed, the snow is swirling everywhere. You can't see the figure inside. You can't see the beauty of the scene. What do most people do? They try to fix the snow globe by shaking it harder, trying to force the snow to the bottom. It never works. To quiet the snow globe, you have to do the one thing that feels most counterintuitive in our hustle culture. You have to set it down. You have to stop agitating it. The snow will settle on its own, not because you forced it, but because you stopped interfering with it. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds great in theory. I'll just set the snow globe down. But what if my snow globe is glued to my hand? What if my brain won't let go of the worry because it thinks the worry is keeping me safe? This brings us to one of the most fascinating and frustrating parts of human psychology. Your brain actually wants you to stay turbulent. It has a biological reason for keeping you on edge, and it will fight you every step of the way to keep the noise loud. In Chapter 2, we're going to look at the biological saboteur. We are going to go deep into the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and discover the safety paradox. I'm going to show you exactly why your brain interprets peace as a threat, and I'm going to give you the neural override technique to trick your biology into finally letting go. If you've ever felt like you're in a tug-of-war with your own mind, it's time to learn how to drop the rope. Chapter 2, the biological saboteur. Have you ever tried to meditate, or even just sit quietly on your porch for 5 minutes, only to have your brain scream at you that you're wasting time? Have you ever reached a point of total exhaustion, crawled into bed, and suddenly felt a surge of electrical energy through your limbs, a tired but wired feeling that keeps you staring at the ceiling? It feels like a betrayal, doesn't it? You want peace, but your brain wants a crisis. You want to relax, but your body is preparing for a fight. Most people think this is a personal failing. They think they are bad at being calm. But the truth is much more mechanical. You are currently locked in a struggle with a biological saboteur that has been part of the human experience for 200,000 years. Your brain isn't broken. It's actually working exactly how it was designed to. The problem is that its security settings are still calibrated for a world that no longer exists. Today, we're going to look into the fear center of your mind to understand why your biology thinks inner peace is a threat to your survival. In the world of psychology, we spend a lot of time talking about thoughts. But thoughts are just the shadow. The substance is your biology. Deep within the temporal lobe of your brain sits a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It is the oldest part of your emotional processing system. If your brain is a house, the amygdala is the smoke detector. Its only job is to ask one question: is this going to kill me? For our ancestors on the plains of the savannah, this system was a lifesaver. If they heard a rustle in the tall grass, the amygdala didn't wait for a board meeting to decide what to do. It instantly flooded the body with adrenaline and cortisol, shut down the digestive system, and prepared the muscles to run or fight. In that world, inner peace was actually dangerous. A relaxed human was a human that got eaten. Evolution favored the anxious. It favored the person who was always scanning for threats, always restless, always slightly paranoid. You are the descendant of the most anxious humans in history. You have inherited a high-performance survival engine, and now you're trying to drive it through a suburban neighborhood at 20 miles per hour. This leads us to what I call the safety paradox. In modern America, we are, statistically speaking, safer than almost any humans who have ever lived. We have climate-controlled homes, grocery stores filled with food, and medical technology that would seem like magic to our grandparents. But our amygdala doesn't know what a grocery store is. It doesn't know what a 401k is. It only knows arousal levels. When you live a high-stress, high-input life, your amygdala becomes sensitized. It starts to interpret busyness as safety. As long as you are moving, worrying, and scanning your phone, the amygdala thinks, "Good, we are alert. We are aware of the predators." The moment you try to sit in silence, the moment you try to quiet your mind, the amygdala panics. It looks around and sees no activity, and it assumes you've let your guard down. It sends out an emergency signal: "Hey, why are we calm? There must be a threat we're missing." This is why, when you sit down to relax, you suddenly remember that one snarky comment from your neighbor or that project due in 3 weeks. Your brain is generating artificial threats just to get your heart rate back up to a level where it feels safe. You are addicted to your own stress hormones because your biology has confused anxiety with vigilance. Let's look at the fuel of this saboteur: cortisol. In the US, we have built a culture that is a giant cortisol factory. Think about your average Tuesday morning. Your alarm goes off. That's a mini stress response. You check your phone. A news headline about the economy triggers a spike. You drive to work. Traffic and aggressive drivers keep the threat response active. You drink a large coffee. Caffeine mimics the physiological symptoms of anxiety. By the time you sit down at your desk at 9 a.m., your body is chemically convinced that you are being hunted by a predator. Because you aren't actually running through the woods, that chemical energy has nowhere to go. It stays in your tissues. It stays in your nervous system. This is what creates that buzzing feeling in the back of your neck. It's why you can't sit still in a meeting. Your body is ready to sprint for its life, but you're stuck in a cubicle answering emails. Over time, this creates a higher baseline. You forget what actual calm feels like. You think normal is a state of low-level dread. You've been living in a burning building for so long that you've stopped smelling the smoke. When the amygdala takes over, something happens in your brain called the amygdala hijack. Visual: a diagram of the brain showing the connection between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala has the power to literally mute the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, reason, and peace. This is why, when you're stressed or angry, you can't think clearly. The logician has been locked in the basement so the security guard can run the building. In this state, you lose your cognitive flexibility. You can't see solutions, you only see problems. You can't see inner peace as a possibility, you see it as a waste of time. Your biological saboteur has convinced you that your survival depends on your misery. So, how do we fight back against a system that is literally hardwired into our skulls? We don't fight it. You can't fight an almond-sized piece of your brain and win. Instead, you have to hack it. You have to send a signal of safety that the amygdala can't ignore. The most powerful backdoor into your nervous system isn't a thought, it's your breath. There is a specific nerve in your body called the vagus nerve. It runs from your brain all the way down into your abdomen. It is the off switch for the stress response. When you take a deep, slow breath that expands your belly, you are physically stretching the fibers of the vagus nerve. This sends a message directly to the amygdala. We are breathing deeply. No one breathes deeply when they are being chased by a lion. Therefore, we must be safe. It is a neural override. Within 60 seconds of deep, diaphragmatic breathing, the chemical composition of your blood begins to change. The cortisol levels drop. The hijackants, the logician is let out of the basement. Let's apply this to an American staple, the traffic jam. Usually, when someone cuts you off on the I-95 or you're stuck in a crawl on the 405, your amygdala goes into full combat mode. Your hands grip the wheel, your jaw clenches, and your mind starts a 1,000-word monologue about how incompetent everyone else is. Tomorrow, when that happens, I want you to recognize the biological saboteur. Say to yourself, my amygdala is trying to save my life from a Honda Civic. Then perform the box breath. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. By the third round, you'll notice the static in your head begins to clear. The traffic hasn't changed, but your internal climate has. You have successfully overridden 200,000 years of evolution. We also have to talk about your pocket. Your smartphone is an amygdala activation device. Every red dot notification, every breaking news banner, and every vibrating text is designed to trigger a microspike of arousal. In the world of the savannah, a sudden noise meant, look out. In the world of 2026, a sudden ping means someone liked your photo. But your brain doesn't know the difference. It treats the Instagram notification with the same urgency as a predator's growl. To quiet the mind, you must begin a process of sensory budgeting. You have to stop giving your biological saboteur so much free fuel. If you are constantly triggering your threat response with news and social media, you are trying to put out a fire while pouring gasoline on it. A quiet mind requires a low-information diet. The core lesson of Chapter 2 is this: you are not your brain. Your brain is a tool that evolved for a very specific, very violent world. It is a loyal guard dog that is currently barking at shadows in your living room. You don't hate the dog for barking, that's its job. But you also don't have to believe that there is actually a burglar every time it lets out a yelp. Inner peace begins when you can observe your own physiological arousal with a sense of amused detachment. When your heart starts racing before a presentation, or your stomach ties in knots when you see a "we need to talk" text, you can look at that physical sensation and say, there's the saboteur. Thanks for the energy, but I don't need the panic. You are moving from being the victim of the hijack to being the pilot of the machine. Now that you understand the biology of the noise, the why behind the chaos, you might feel a sense of relief. It's not your fault, it's just your hardware. But understanding the hardware is only half the battle. To truly find inner peace, we have to talk about the garbage that's been stored in that hardware for years. Why is it that some people can stay calm in a crisis while others crumble? Why does your mind seem to return to the same 3 greatest hits of your past mistakes every single night? This is where psychology meets the soul. In Chapter 3, we are going to dive into the architecture of belief. We're going to look at the mental maps you've built since childhood and discover the silent scripts that are currently running your life without your permission. If you've ever wondered why you keep making the same mistakes or feeling the same empty feeling despite your success, it's time to look at the blueprint of your mind. We are going to find the lies you believe are truths, and we are going to start the demolition process. Chapter 3: The Architecture of Belief. Have you ever wondered why two people can look at the exact same situation and see two completely different worlds? One person loses their job and sees it as a crushing, life-ending failure, a confirmation that they were never good enough. Another person loses that same job and, while stressed, sees it as a forced pivot toward a better opportunity. One person enters a crowded room and feels a surge of social anxiety, convinced that everyone is judging their outfit or their hair. Another person enters that same room and feels a surge of social excitement, convinced that they are about to make 5 new friends. Same event, different experience. But it's because you don't see the world with your eyes. You see the world through your beliefs. You aren't reacting to reality, you are reacting to your interpretation of reality. Today, we are going to tear down the mental architecture you've been living in for decades. We are going to find the silent scripts that are whispering in the background of your mind, and we're going to discover why your inner peace is currently being held hostage by a set of lies you've mistaken for the truth. In psychology, we call these mental maps schemas. Think of a schema as a pair of tinted glasses that you've worn since you were 5 years old. If your glasses are tinted blue, everything looks cold. If they are tinted red, everything looks aggressive. The problem is that you've worn these glasses for so long that you've forgotten you're wearing them at all. You think the world actually is cold or aggressive. Your quiet mind is currently being drowned out by these schemas. They are the architecture of your mind. They were built by your parents, your teachers, your first heartbreak, and the thousands of advertisements you've seen on American television. They tell you what you should be, how much money you need to make to be happy, and what it means to be a successful human being. Most of the noise in your head isn't random. It is the sound of your life clashing against these rigid, invisible structures. To quiet the mind, we have to identify the scripts that are running in the background. In the US, there are 3 specific scripts that act as the primary architects of our mental chaos. 1. The not enough script. This is the granddaddy of American mental turbulence. It's the constant low-level hum that says, I need more. More followers, more money, a bigger house in a better zip code, a faster car. From a psychological perspective, this is a scarcity mindset. It's a belief that happiness is a destination you haven't reached yet. It keeps your mind in a state of future pacing, where you are always living for the next milestone. But here's the trap. Once you reach the milestone, the script just moves the goalpost. You can't find a quiet mind if you believe that peace is something you have to earn through more achievement. 2. The imposter script. This script is especially loud for high performers in cities like New York, San Francisco, or Austin. It's the fear that if people really knew you, they'd realize you're just winging it. The imposter script creates a massive amount of mental static because it forces you to maintain a persona. You are constantly scanning your own behavior, wondering, did that sound smart? Do I look like I know what I'm doing? You are performing your life instead of living it, and performance is exhausting. It is the opposite of stillness. 3. The catastrophe script. This is the script that takes a minor unknown and turns it into a disaster. Your boss says, "Can we talk at 4 p.m.?" And by 1 p.m., your catastrophe script has already fired you, lost you your house, and has you living in a van down by the river. This is a cognitive distortion called fortune telling. Your mind is trying to protect you by preparing you for the worst, but all it's actually doing is giving you the physiological stress of a disaster that hasn't even happened. One of the most powerful tools in modern psychology is the CBT triangle. It shows the unbreakable link between your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. Most people try to change their emotions. They try to not feel anxious. But emotions are like the weather. You can't control them directly. CBT teaches us that if you want to change the emotion, the anxiety, you have to go upstream and change the thought, the belief. If you believe that my worth is tied to my productivity, then the moment you have a slow day at work, your mind will generate turbulence, guilt, and anxiety. You can't meditate away that guilt as long as the underlying architecture, the belief, is still standing. To find a quiet mind, you don't need more calm thoughts. You need more accurate beliefs. Let's look at a very American example of how this architecture creates noise. The neighbor's new car. You pull into your driveway in your perfectly fine 5-year-old SUV. You see your neighbor has a brand new 6-figure electric truck in their driveway. Suddenly, your architecture of belief kicks in. The script says, "They are doing better than me. I'm falling behind. I need to work harder." Within seconds, your quiet afternoon is ruined. Your heart rate is up. Your mind is racing with financial plans or feelings of inadequacy. But wait, did the neighbor actually do anything to you? Did your SUV suddenly stop working? The noise was created entirely by your internal comparison script. In psychology, we call this social comparison theory. We compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. A quiet mind is impossible in a mind that is constantly grading itself against others. The most violent word in the English language for your mental health is the word should. I should be further along by now. I should be married. I should be thinner. I should be making 6 figures. Every should is a brick in the wall of your mental prison. These are introject beliefs, values that you've swallowed whole from society without ever checking if they actually belong to you. When you should on yourself, you are in a state of constant conflict between who you are and who you think you need to be. That conflict is the source of the noise. To find inner peace, you have to perform a values audit. You have to ask, is this my belief or is this my parents' belief? Is this my goal or is this an Instagram goal? Stillness begins when the need to be finally gives up and accepts who you are. How do we find these hidden scripts? We use a technique called the downward arrow. The next time you feel a surge of mental turbulence, let's say you're worried about a presentation, ask yourself, if that worry were true, what would that mean about me? You might answer, it would mean I failed the presentation. Ask again. And if I failed the presentation, what would that mean about me? It would mean I'm not good at my job. Ask again. And if I'm not good at my job, what does that mean? It means I'm a failure and I'm unlovable. Bingo. There it is. That the silent script isn't about the presentation. It's about a core belief that your lovability is tied to your performance. Once you see the script, it loses its power. You can look at the noise and say, I see you. You're just my unlovable script acting up again. But a presentation is just a presentation. This is how you defend the turbulence. Imagine you're at a dinner with people you want to impress. Maybe it's your in-laws or a new boss. You spend the whole dinner editing yourself. You're thinking 3 steps ahead. You're worried about being boring. This is the architecture of approval. You believe that your safety depends on their opinion of you. The quiet mind approach to this dinner is to recognize the script and choose a new one. I am here to learn about them, not to prove myself to them. The moment you shift from proving to learning, the noise vanishes. Because the pressure of the performance script has been removed. You've changed the architecture, so the room feels different. The core lesson of Chapter 3 is a famous saying in psychology, the map is not the territory. Your beliefs are just a map of reality. They are not reality itself. Most of the stress you feel is just you getting mad at the map because it doesn't match the ground. Inner peace isn't about changing the world so it matches your map. It's about realizing that your map is old, outdated, and full of errors. You don't have to believe everything you think. You are the architect of your own meaning. If a belief is creating turbulence, it is a bad map. You have the right to throw it away and draw a new one. You've now looked at the hardware of your biology and the software of your beliefs. You're starting to see that the noise in your head isn't an accident, it's a construction. But there is one final piece to this puzzle. Even with the right biology and the right beliefs, there is a ghost in the room that we haven't addressed yet. It's the thing that pulls you back into the chaos the moment things get difficult. It's the addiction we have to our own drama. Why do we find it so hard to just stay in the peace once we find it? Why do we keep picking up the snow globe and shaking it again? In Chapter 4, we are going to explore the hidden traps of the ego. We are going to talk about stimulation dependency and why your mind is actually bored by peace. I'm going to show you how to survive the withdrawal of silence and how to build a daily practice that doesn't just work on a Sunday morning, but in the middle of a Monday afternoon meltdown. We've identified the architecture. Now, it's time to move in. Chapter 4: The Hidden Traps of the Ego. Have you ever had a perfectly calm day, maybe a Sunday afternoon where the chores were done, the house was quiet, and you finally had a moment to sit on the couch, and within 5 minutes, you felt an almost itchy, uncomfortable urge to check your phone? Or perhaps you started an argument with your partner over something trivial, only to realize later you weren't even mad, you were just bored? It sounds crazy, doesn't it? We claim we want peace. We buy books on mindfulness, we download apps for meditation, and we tell everyone how stressed we are. But the moment peace actually arrives, we sabotage it. The truth is, for many of us, inner peace is terrifying. It feels like a void. It feels like we're losing our edge. Today, we're going to talk about the addiction to drama. We're going to look at why your ego views silence as a form of death and why you keep picking up that snow globe and shaking it, even when you know it's making you miserable. It's time to talk about the stimulation trap. In psychology, the ego isn't just arrogance. It is your sense of I. It is the story you tell yourself about who you are. And for most people living in the high-pressure environment of the US, that I is built entirely on problem solving. Your ego feels important when it has a problem to solve. It feels real when it is complaining, worrying, or grinding. When you enter a state of true mental stillness, the ego loses its job. There are no problems to chew on, no enemies to defeat, and no future to plan. To the ego, silence feels like non-existence. This is why, the moment you try to settle your mind, your ego will throw a mental tantrum. It will generate random anxieties, important reminders, or even physical restlessness just to keep itself at the center of the stage. You aren't bad at meditating, you're just experiencing ego resistance. We have to talk about the biology of boredom. We live in a dopamine economy. Every time you get a like, a match, or a breaking news alert, your brain gets a tiny squirt of dopamine, the reward chemical. Over time, your brain develops a tolerance. Just like a drug addict needs a stronger dose to get high, you need more and more mental noise just to feel normal. Silence, in a dopamine-addicted brain, feels like withdrawal. When you sit in a quiet room without your phone, your brain's reward centers begin to starve. This creates a feeling of anxious boredom. You start to feel like you're missing something. You tell yourself you're wasting time. But you aren't wasting time. You are simply detoxing from the constant stimulation of modern life. If you want a quiet mind, you have to be willing to go through the withdrawal phase without reaching for a fresh hit of distraction. In America, we have a unique psychological parasite, the worthiness/workness loop. We have been conditioned to believe that our value as a human being is directly tied to our output. This is why relaxing often feels like guilt. You're sitting on your deck, looking at the trees, and a voice in your head whispers, "You should be catching up on those emails. You should be folding that laundry. Everyone else is outworking you right now." This is the moralization of stress. We have made busyness a virtue. If you aren't stressed, you feel like you aren't trying hard enough. To find inner peace, you have to break this link. You have to realize that stillness is not idleness. Stillness is the highest form of mental maintenance. A car that never stops for gas eventually breaks down. A mind that never stops for silence eventually loses its ability to think clearly. Peace is not a reward for your hard work. It is the requirement for your best work. Why does our ego choose negative thoughts over positive ones when it's bored? Why don't we sit in silence and fantasize about winning a Nobel Prize? Instead, we sit in silence and remember that one embarrassing thing we said in high school. This is due to the negativity bias. From an evolutionary standpoint, bad news is more important than good news. The person who forgot where the berry bush was survived. The person who forgot where the tiger lived did not. Our egos are programmed to prioritize threats over pleasures. When your mind is quiet, your ego goes on a threat hunt. It digs through your past and your future to find anything that could go wrong. It's not trying to make you unhappy, it's trying to keep you alert. But in the modern world, this constant alertness is a recipe for burnout. To quiet the mind, you have to recognize the threat hunt for what it is, an outdated survival software running on a loop. Let's look at a common American example, the workplace drama. You're at home, work is over, but you spend 2 hours on the phone with a coworker talking about what Sarah said or what the boss is planning. Psychologically, why do we do this? Because drama is high stimulation. It makes us feel alive. It gives our ego a story to play in. We are the hero, Sarah is the villain, and the conflict gives us a sense of purpose. A quiet mind would say, that happened at 10 a.m. It is now 7 p.m. Sarah is not in this room. The boss is not in this room. Why am I bringing them into my house? But the ego loves the drama too much to let it go. To find peace, you have to be willing to be boring. You have to be willing to let the story end when the event ends. Here is a trap that catches the most spiritual or self-help minded people: the addiction to the fix. You go from one audiobook to another, one retreat to another, one secret technique to another. You think that one day you'll find the magic key that will finally quiet your mind forever. This is just another form of mental turbulence. It's called spiritual materialism. Your ego has turned inner peace into another achievement to unlock. You are hustling for stillness. The truth is, you don't need a fix. There is nothing broken. You are simply overcomplicating the process. Stillness isn't something you add to your life. It's what's left over when you stop adding the noise. Stop looking for the new method and start looking at why you're so afraid of the current moment. I want to give you a challenge that many of my clients in the US find genuinely difficult. It's called the silent dinner. Tomorrow night, eat your dinner alone, in silence. No TV, no phone, no music, no podcast. Just you and the food. Within 3 minutes, you will feel the ego traps kick in. You'll feel bored. You'll feel a desperate urge to check something. You'll start thinking about tomorrow's schedule. Notice that resistance. That feeling of uncomfortability is the ego losing its grip. If you can stay in that silence for just 15 minutes, you will feel a shift. The withdrawal will peak, and on the other side of it, you'll find a strange, cool sense of clarity. You've proven to your brain that you don't need constant drama to survive. The core lesson of Chapter 4 is this: you must learn to be unentertained. Most of our mental noise is just a sophisticated form of entertainment. We worry because it gives us something to do. We rumination because it makes us feel like we're working on ourselves. Inner peace requires you to sit with the void. It requires you to be okay with a mind that isn't doing anything. As the famous quote often attributed to the Buddha says, "The trouble is, you think you have time. The ego thinks it has forever to solve your life, so it keeps you busy. But the quiet mind knows that the only thing you actually have is now. And now is almost always a lot quieter than the ego wants you to believe." You've identified the traps. You know why you're addicted to the noise and why your ego fights the silence. You're starting to realize that the prison you've been living in doesn't actually have a lock on the door. You've just been too afraid to see what's outside. But there's a practical question we haven't answered yet. How do you maintain this stillness when you aren't sitting in a quiet room? How do you keep your mind quiet when your boss is yelling, your kids are crying, and your bank account is low? Is inner peace only for people who live in cabins in the woods, or can it work on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange? In Chapter 5, we are going to build the daily architecture of peace. We're going to move from theory to practice. I'm going to give you the anchor moments and the micro-meditation techniques that allow you to carry a portable silence wherever you go. We've studied the mind. Now, it's time to train it like an athlete. Chapter 5, Building the Daily Architecture of Peace. How many times have you finished a relaxing vacation only to feel your stress levels skyrocket back to 100% the moment you checked your first work email at the airport? How many times have you felt zen after a yoga class only to lose your temper at a slow driver 5 minutes later? This is the yoga mat fallacy. We think that inner peace is something that happens in a specific place, at a specific time, under perfect conditions. We think we need the right music, the right candle, and the right cushion to be spiritual. But let's be real, a peace that only works when everything is perfect isn't peace at all. It's a luxury. If your quiet mind disappears the moment life gets loud, you haven't built a quiet mind, you've just built a temporary escape. Today, we are going to build the daily architecture of peace. We are going to stop treating stillness as a destination and start treating it as the operating system you run in the background of your entire day. It's time to move from theory to training. In the world of professional athletics, they talk about core stability. If an athlete's core is weak, they can't perform no matter how strong their arms or legs are. In psychology, we have a similar concept called emotional regulation capacity. Your core is your ability to return to center no matter what is happening around you. Most people spend their lives reacting. They are victims of the environment. If the day is good, they are happy. If the day is bad, they are miserable. Building a daily architecture means you stop letting the world decide your internal climate. You develop what I call portable silence. This is the ability to carry a pocket of stillness with you into a boardroom, onto a subway, or into a difficult conversation with your teenager. You don't need the world to go quiet for you to be still. You become the quiet at the center of the storm. The secret to a quiet mind isn't one long meditation session at 5 a.m. For most busy Americans, that's just another thing on the to-do list that creates more pressure. The secret is anchor moments. An anchor moment is a brief 30 to 60-second intentional pause that you hook onto an existing habit in your day. In psychology, this is called habit stacking. You take something you already do, something automatic, and you use it as a trigger to reset your nervous system. Let's look at 3 essential anchors for the American lifestyle. 1. The first touch anchor. In the US, 80% of smartphone users check their phone within 15 minutes of waking up. This is a disaster for your mental architecture. You are inviting the entire world, the news, your boss, your ex, the stock market, into your bed before you've even stretched. The first touch anchor is simple. You do not touch your phone until you have taken 5 conscious breaths. Just 5. As you lie there, you notice the weight of your body on the mattress. You notice the temperature of the air. You set one intention for the day, like, today, I choose clarity over chaos. You have just claimed the first territory of your day. You have proven to your brain that you are the pilot, not your notifications. 2. The threshold anchor. Think about how many doors you walk through in a day. Your front door, your office door, the bathroom door, the car door. The threshold anchor turns every doorway into a reset button. Every time you put your hand on a doorknob, you pause for 1 second. You drop your shoulders. You unclench your jaw. You take one deep breath. This prevents stress accumulation. Most people carry the stress of meeting into meeting B. By the end of the day, they are a ball of tension. Threshold anchors act like circuit breakers. They stop the surge of mental noise from traveling from one part of your life to the next. 3. The transition anchor. The most dangerous time for mental turbulence is the transition, the space between work and home. In the US, we often use our commute to ruminate on work. Then we walk into our house and dump that energy on our families. The transition anchor is a ritual of mental decontamination. Before you walk into your house, you sit in your car for 2 minutes. You visualize yourself taking off your work persona and leaving it in the backseat. You ask yourself, who do I want to be for the people inside this house? This simple pivot changes the entire chemistry of your evening. Why do these tiny moments work? It comes down to neuroplasticity. When you are stressed, your brain is running a high-speed loop between your amygdala, fear, and your ego, problem solving. This loop is like a rut in a dirt road. The more you drive it, the deeper it gets. When you perform an anchor moment, you are jumping the rut. You are forcing your brain to activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive function and calm. By doing this 30 times a day in small bursts, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are making calm your new default setting. It's not about the 1 hour of meditation. It's about the 30 moments of choosing peace in the middle of the chaos. We cannot talk about architecture without talking about the inputs. If you are building a house out of garbage, it doesn't matter how good the blueprint is. In America, we are information obese. We consume more data in a single day than our ancestors did in an entire lifetime. This creates cognitive friction. Every piece of news, every social media post, and every hot take requires mental energy to process. To have a quiet mind, you must become a sensory minimalist. Turn off all non-human notifications. You do not need to know that a clothing brand has a sale. You do not need a breaking news alert about something happening 3,000 miles away that you cannot control. The one-screen rule. When you are watching TV, watch TV. Don't scroll on your phone at the same time. Dual screening fragments your attention and keeps your brain in a state of high beta turbulence. The sunset rule. No digital inputs 60 minutes before bed. Give your brain a buffer zone to settle. Let's look at a modern American workplace staple, back-to-back Zoom calls. Usually, you hang up on one call and immediately click the link for the next. You are still thinking about the budget from the last call while someone is talking about marketing on the new one. This is attention residue. The architecture approach is the 60-second gap. You tell your team, I start meetings at 2 minutes past the hour. You use those 60 seconds to close your eyes, feel your feet on the floor, and clear the cache of your brain. You enter the new call with 100% of your attention. You will be twice as effective as the person who is hustling through the transition. There is a specific trap in the American mindset called conditional peace. I'll be quiet when the kids go to college. I'll be still when this project is over. I'll be at peace when I have $1 million in the bank. This is a hallucination. There is no someday. Life is just a series of nows. If you cannot find peace in the middle of the mess, you will not find it in the middle of the retirement home. The architecture we are building is for the now. It is a battle-tested peace. As the psychologist Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, famously said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Your daily architecture is the tool you use to expand that space. The core lesson of Chapter 5 is this: you don't find peace, you build it. You are the architect of your own internal environment. If your mind is noisy, it's because you've built a noisy life. If you want a quiet mind, you have to build this scaffolding that supports it. This isn't about being perfect. You will miss your anchors. You will forget to breathe. You will get sucked back into the scroll. That's okay. The architecture isn't a prison, it's a lighthouse. When you get lost in the storm, you just look for the light and head back to the now. You now have the tools. You have the anchor moments. You have this sensory budget. You're starting to see that you can be the master of your day instead of its slave. But there's a final boss we haven't defeated yet. It's the thing that happens when life doesn't just get busy, but gets hard. What happens when the architecture is hit by a hurricane? What happens when you face a real crisis, a health scare, a breakup, or a financial loss? Does the quiet mind break under pressure, or does it get stronger? In Chapter 6, we are going to explore resilience under fire. We're going to look at the advanced reframing techniques used by elite special forces and emergency room doctors to stay calm when the world is burning down. I'm going to show you how to turn your anxiety into oxygen and how to find the gift inside the grief. The architecture is built. Now, it's time to test its strength. Chapter 6, Resilience Under Fire. It's easy to be a Zen master when the sun is shining, your bills are paid, and your kids are playing quietly. Anyone can have a quiet mind on a beach in Hawaii. But what happens when the hurricane hits? What happens when you get the phone call from the doctor that changes everything? What happens when the company you've given 10 years to suddenly restructures you out of a job? What happens when your partner walks out the door or your bank account hits zero? For most people, this is when the quiet mind architecture collapses. They think that peace is a fair weather friend. But I'm here to tell you that true psychological stillness isn't meant for the calm. It was forged for the chaos. Today, we are going to learn how to maintain clarity when the world is falling apart. We're going to explore the techniques used by those who perform under extreme pressure, from Navy SEALs to our surgeons, to show you how to turn your panic into purpose. It's time to see if your architecture can stand the storm. In the United States, we have a strange psychological obsession with avoiding stress. We think that a good life is a life without problems. We treat every setback like a personal insult from the universe. But psychology tells us that the goal isn't to be stress-free. That's called being dead. The goal is to be stress-resilient. There is a concept in engineering called stress testing. You take a bridge or a skyscraper and you apply extreme pressure to it to see where the weak points are. In your life, a crisis is just a psychological stress test. It isn't happening to you, it is happening for you. It is showing you exactly where your architecture of belief is still fragile. A quiet mind doesn't mean the storm stops. It means you become the anchor that the storm cannot move. How do elite performers stay calm when the stakes are life and death? They use a technique called pressure inoculation. Just like a vaccine exposes your body to a tiny, harmless version of a virus so you can build immunity, pressure inoculation involves deliberately practicing your quiet mind skills during minor irritations so that they are automatic during major crises. Most people try to start being calm during a divorce or a layoff. That's like trying to learn how to swim while you're being tossed off the Titanic. It's too late. You build resilience in the micro moments. When you're stuck in a 20-minute line at the DMV. When your computer crashes 5 minutes before a deadline. When your toddler spills grape juice on your white rug. These aren't annoyances. They are training grounds. Every time you choose to take a slow breath instead of yelling, you are inoculating your nervous system. You are building the muscle of response flexibility. When a crisis hits, your amygdala immediately creates a story. It's usually a story of victimhood. Why is this happening to me? I can't handle this. Everything is ruined. This story is the source of the turbulence. To find peace, you have to use tactical reframing. This is a cognitive behavioral tool that forces you to change the narrative of the event in real time. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What is this demanding of me?" A health scare isn't just a threat, it's a wake-up call to honor your body. A breakup isn't just a loss, It's a space clearing for a more authentic connection. A financial setback isn't just a failure, it's a resourcefulness challenge. This isn't toxic positivity. You aren't pretending the situation doesn't suck. You are simply choosing a frame that allows you to stay in the pilot seat. You are extracting the wisdom from the wound. There is a fascinating biological difference between how your body handles a threat versus a challenge. When you see a crisis as a threat, your blood vessels constrict, your heart rate spikes, and your brain shuts down its creative centers. You are in survival mode. But when you reframe that same crisis as a challenge, your blood vessels actually stay dilated. Your heart pumps more efficiently. Your brain releases focused neurochemicals like norepinephrine. You are in peak performance mode. The event is the same. The only difference is the label you give it. By consciously labeling a crisis as a challenge to be met, you change your internal chemistry from acid to fuel. Let's look at a classic American fear: getting laid off. Your boss calls you in on a Friday afternoon. The architecture of turbulence immediately goes to work. Within 10 minutes, you've already visualized yourself being homeless. You're angry at the company. You're ashamed to tell your spouse. The noise is deafening. The quiet mind approach is to immediately apply the rule of 3. Stop the bleeding. Take 10 slow breaths to clear the amygdala hijack. Do not make any phone calls or send any emails until the static clears. Separate fact from fiction. The fact is you no longer have this specific job. The fiction is that you are a failure and your life is over. Identify the next smallest step. Do not try to solve the next year. Just solve the next hour. I will walk to my car, I will drive home safely, and I will have a calm conversation with my partner. By narrowing your focus to the next smallest step, you deny the turbulence the mental space it needs to grow. Resilience is just the act of staying in the now when the future looks scary. Here is a secret that many high-achieving Americans find difficult to swallow. Resilience requires surrender. Most of our mental noise during a crisis comes from resistance. We are fighting reality. We are screaming, "This shouldn't be happening." Imagine you are caught in a rip current at the beach. If you try to swim directly back to shore against the current, you will exhaust yourself and drown. That is resistance. To survive, you have to surrender to the current. You swim with it, parallel to the shore, until the pull weakens and you can make your way back. In a crisis, surrender means saying, "Okay, this is what is happening right now. I don't like it, but it is reality." The moment you accept the reality, the fighting noise stops. You save all that energy for action. As the saying goes, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Suffering is just pain multiplied by resistance. When you stop resisting, the suffering disappears and only the problem remains. Problems can be solved. Suffering just paralyzes. Think about an ER doctor during a mass casualty event. The room is full of blood, screaming, and chaos. If the doctor lets the turbulence take over, if they start thinking, "This is so sad, this is a disaster, I can't handle this," the patient dies. The doctor maintains a quiet mind through clinical detachment. They focus entirely on the process, not the outcome. They don't think about the patient's life story. They think about the airway, breathing, and circulation. You can apply this to your own life. When your world is screaming, become clinical. Break the crisis down into vital signs. What is the most urgent thing right now? Asterisk, what is the data telling me? Asterisk, what is my protocol? By focusing on the work, you silence the worry. The core lesson of Chapter 6 is the concept of anti-fragility, a term coined by the author Nassim Taleb. Something fragile breaks under stress like a glass. Something resilient resists stress and stays the same like a steel beam. But something anti-fragile actually gets better and stronger when it is stressed, like a human muscle. Your mind is designed to be anti-fragile. The quiet mind isn't a shield that protects you from life. It is a metabolism that consumes life, even the bad parts, and turns them into strength. The harder your life gets, the closer you must get to your practices. The crisis is the fire that tempers the steel of your soul. You've now seen that your architecture can stand the storm. You've learned how to reframe a threat into a challenge and how to surrender to reality so you can act with clarity. You're becoming anti-fragile. But there is one more level to this journey. Up until now, we've focused on your mind, your peace, and your resilience. But humans don't live in a vacuum. We live in a web of relationships. What happens when your quiet mind meets someone else's noisy mind? How do you stay still when your partner is projecting their anxiety onto you, or your boss is dumping their stress into your lap? Can you be a source of peace for others without losing your own? In Chapter 7, we are going to explore the transformation of connection. We're going to look at mirror neurons and emotional contagion to show you how to protect your peace in a world full of noisy people. I'm going to show you how to set psychological boundaries and how to turn a conflict into a connection. It's time to take your stillness out into the world. Chapter 7: Transforming Connection Through Inner Stability. Have you ever walked into a room feeling perfectly fine, only to spend 10 minutes talking to a stressed-out coworker or an angry family member, and suddenly you feel like your chest is tight and your mind is racing? It's as if you caught their mood like a common cold. Or perhaps you've tried to have a calm, rational conversation with your partner about the budget or the schedule, but within 60 seconds, you're both yelling, the quiet mind is gone, and you're left wondering, how did we get here again? Most of us believe that our peace is at the mercy of the people around us. We think, I'll be happy as soon as my boss stops being a micromanager, or I'll be calm as soon as my teenager stops acting out. But today we are going to flip the script. You are about to discover that you are not a victim of other people's energy, you are an emotional architect. We are going to explore the science of how minds talk to each other and learn how to become a source of peace in a world that is desperately loud. In psychology, there is a phenomenon known as emotional contagion. Think of it like a mental Wi-Fi. Our brains are hardwired to pick up on the signals of those around us. This happens through mirror neurons, specialized cells in your brain that fire both when you perform an action and when you see someone else perform that same action. When someone walks toward you with a clenched jaw and a furrowed brow, your mirror neurons instantly simulate that tension in your own body. Your brain assumes there must be a threat, and it prepares you for a fight. Most noisy relationships are just two people's mirror neurons bouncing stress back and forth in an endless loop. But here is the secret. Mirror neurons work both ways. If you can maintain your internal stability, if you can stay quiet in the face of their noise, you can actually pull them into your peace. This is the ultimate power of a settled mind. It doesn't just protect you, it transforms the room. To transform your connections, you must first establish psychological sovereignty. This is the firm belief that you are the only one with the keys to your internal state. In America, we have a bad habit of saying, "You made me so angry," or "He made me feel guilty." From a psychological perspective, this is a lie. No one can make you feel anything. They can provide a stimulus, but you provide the response. When you give someone else the power to make you angry, you have essentially handed them the remote control to your life. Sovereignty means taking that remote back. It means looking at a difficult person and saying to yourself, "This person is experiencing a storm. I can see their storm, I can even empathize with their storm, but I am not the storm." This mental distance is the foundation of a quiet mind in a noisy world. When someone triggers you, maybe it's an annoying comment from a relative at Thanksgiving or a passive-aggressive email, your amygdala wants you to react instantly. It wants you to defend your ego. This is the reactivity trap. To break it, you use the 3-second rule. Before you speak, before you type, and before you even change your facial expression, You count to 3. Second 1. Feel your feet on the floor. Second 2. Soften your shoulders. Second 3. Ask yourself, does my response serve the connection or the ego? If you respond from your ego, you just add more noise to the room. If you respond from the connection, you maintain the quiet. In the US workplace, the person who can stay non-reactive for those 3 seconds is the person who ultimately leads the room. Silence isn't a lack of power, it is the highest form of it. When you choose to remain stable during a conflict, something amazing happens in your biology. Instead of a spike in cortisol, your brain releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, and GABA, which acts as a natural tranquilizer for the nervous system. By staying calm, you are literally broadcasting a chemical signal of safety. This is known as co-regulation. Just as a mother's heartbeat can calm a crying infant, your settled mind can de-escalate a heated argument without you saying a single word. You are using your biology to bypass their defense mechanisms and speak directly to their safety center. We all have that one person, maybe a parent, an in-law, or an old friend, who knows exactly which buttons to push. They make a comment about your weight, your career, or your parenting, and you feel the turbulence rising. The quiet mind approach is to realize that buttons can only be pushed if they are still connected to your identity. If you believe you are not enough, remember the scripts from chapter 3, their comment is like a match to gasoline. But if you have done the work of the previous chapters, if you have dismantled that script, then their comment is just a sound. It has no fuel. Next time they push a button, try this. Smile inwardly and think, that's their map of the world, not mine. You don't have to defend a map you don't live in. By refusing to play the game ends. In the US, we often think of boundaries as walls. We think they have to be harsh. Don't talk to me like that. But harsh boundaries actually create more noise because they trigger defensiveness in others. Instead, we use radiant boundaries. A radiant boundary is a limit set with such clarity and calm that there is nothing to fight against. Imagine a coworker who constantly dumps their last-minute work on you. A noisy boundary sounds like, "This is so unfair. I'm always doing your work. Stop doing this." High turbulence, low effectiveness. A radiant boundary sounds like, "I can see this project is important. I'm available to help starting next Tuesday, but I'm fully booked until then. Let me know if you'd like to schedule time for then." Notice there is no sorry, no explanation, and no anger. It is just a fact. When you speak from a quiet mind, people tend to respect your boundaries more because they can feel the weight of your conviction. Here is a major source of mental noise for empathetic people, the fixer trap. You see someone you love struggling, maybe they are anxious, depressed, or making bad choices, and you spend all your mental energy trying to think for them. You rehearse their problems in your head at night. You give them advice they don't follow. Psychologically, this is a form of enmeshment. You have let your peace become dependent on their progress. True quiet comes from realizing that you cannot walk someone else's path for them. The best thing you can do for a struggling person isn't to join them in their chaos, but to remain a stable lighthouse. By maintaining your own peace, you provide a point of reference for them to find theirs. Your stability is the greatest gift you can offer, but you have to keep it for yourself first. Imagine you're in a meeting and your boss starts venting. They are stressed, they are blaming the team, and the air in the room is turning toxic. Everyone else is leaning away, looking at their shoes, or getting defensive. This is your moment to practice compassionate detachment. Instead of taking the words personally, look at the boss as if you were a doctor. Notice the symptoms of their stress, the high pitch of the voice, the repetitive words, the fast breathing. When you see the symptoms instead of the attack, your turbulence disappears. When it's your turn to speak, you don't respond to the venting, you respond to the underlying need. You might say, "I hear that the deadline is the priority here. Here is what my team can do to meet that." By staying in the quiet, you pull the whole meeting back to reality. The core lesson of Chapter 7 is the concept of the non-anxious presence. In any system, a family, a business, a marriage, the person with the most internal stability eventually influences the whole system. Think of a mobile hanging over a baby's crib. If you move one piece, every other piece moves. When you decide to be the non-anxious presence, you stop being a reactor and start being a leader. You realize that the noise of other people is just a request for quiet. By refusing to reflect their chaos, you give them the space to settle. Connection isn't about two people being the same. It's about two people finding a shared stillness. You've mastered your biology, your beliefs, and now your connections. You're starting to see that a quiet mind isn't just a personal benefit, it's a social superpower. You are becoming a lighthouse in a very foggy world. But there is still a final frontier we have to conquer. It's the thing that happens when you look into the mirror. Even if the world is quiet and your relationships are stable, do you actually like the person you are alone with? Or is there a hidden critic in the back of your mind that is still whispering that you aren't enough? Can you find peace with your own past, your own flaws, and your own shadow? In Chapter 8, we are going to dive into the psychology of self-compassion. We're going to look at internal family systems and shadow work to show you how to make peace with the person in the mirror. We are going to turn your inner critic into an inner ally and find the quietest place of all, self-acceptance. The world is settled. Now, it's time to settle with yourself. Chapter 8, The Friend in the Mirror, Mastering Self-Compassion. If you talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself, how many friends would you actually have left? Seriously, think about it. If you followed your best friend around all day and whispered into their ear the same things you say to yourself, "You're so lazy. Why did you say that? You're falling behind. You look terrible today. You're going to fail," they would call the police. They would cut you out of their life forever. And yet, we live with this inner bully 24 hours a day. We've become so used to the noise of self-criticism that we think it's just the voice of reason. We think that if we aren't hard on ourselves, we'll lose our edge and become nothing. But today, we are going to expose the great psychological lie that self-criticism leads to success. You are about to discover that your inner critic is actually the primary hand shaking your snow globe. It's time to stop trying to fix yourself and start the most radical practice of all, self-compassion. In psychology, we often view the mind not as a single me, but as a collection of parts. This is known as the Internal Family Systems, IFS, model. Think of your mind as a house full of people. You have the go-getter part, the scared child part, and, most loudly, the inner critic part. For most Americans, the inner critic has staged a coup and taken over the intercom system. It spends all day broadcasting your flaws. This creates an internal civil war. You are the attacker and the victim at the same time. This constant friction is the source of 90% of your mental turbulence. You cannot have a quiet mind if the person inside the mind is constantly shouting at you. Inner peace isn't the absence of flaws. It's the absence of the war against those flaws. Why do we listen to the critic? Because we are afraid. We have a core belief, remember Chapter 3, that says, "If I am kind to myself, I will become lazy and complacent." In the US, we are obsessed with tough love. We think that being hard on ourselves is what made us successful. But the science of positive psychology proves the exact opposite. Dr. Kristin Neff, the leading researcher on self-compassion, found that self-criticism actually activates the threat defense system, the amygdala. It floods your body with cortisol. When you criticize yourself, you are literally attacking your own brain. This leads to fear of failure, procrastination, and burnout. Self-compassion, on the other hand, activates the caregiving system. It releases oxytocin and opiates, which lower stress and increase cognitive function. Being kind to yourself doesn't make you lazy, It makes you resilient. It gives you the safe foundation you need to take risks and learn from mistakes without being crushed by them. To transition from self-criticism to self-compassion, we use 3 psychological pillars. 1. Mindfulness, the observation. Instead of being in the self-attack, you observe it. Instead of saying, "I'm a loser because I missed that deadline," you say, "I'm noticing a thought that I'm a loser because I missed a deadline." This creates the gap we talked about in Chapter 1. You become the observer of the critic, not the victim of it. 2. Common humanity, the connection. The critic loves to tell you that you are the only one. You're the only one who struggles with this. You're uniquely flawed. This creates isolation, which fuels the noise. Common humanity means realizing that struggle is part of the human contract. To be human is to be imperfect. When you make a mistake, you tell yourself, "This is what it feels like to be human." Millions of other people feel this exact same frustration right now. This normalizes the experience and quietens the panic. 3. Self-kindness, the action. This is the pivot. You ask yourself, "What would I say to a dear friend in this exact situation?" Then you say it to yourself. Not in a cheesy way, but in a practical, supportive way. "Hey, you're tired, you made a mistake, it's okay. Let's take a breath and see how we can fix this." When you first start being kind to yourself, something strange might happen. You might feel worse. You might feel a surge of sadness, anger, or even more anxiety. In psychology, we call this backdraft. Think of a fire in a building that has used up all the oxygen. When you open the door and fresh air, compassion, rushes in, the fire explodes. When you finally open the door of your heart to yourself, all the pain you've been suppressing with self-criticism comes rushing out. Many Americans stop here. They think, "Being kind to myself makes me depressed." The compassion is just defrosting the old pain so it can finally leave. If you feel backdraft, it means it's working. Stay in the quiet, keep breathing, and let the old noise pass through you. Let's look at a classic US scenario, parental guilt. You've had a long day at work. You're exhausted. You snap at your kid because they spilled something. 5 minutes later, the inner critic arrives with a megaphone. "You're a terrible parent. You're traumatizing them. You can't even handle a small spill. You're failing at the one thing that matters." The noise is deafening. You feel sick. You might even go grab a drink or scroll on your phone just to numb the critic. The quiet mind approach is to use the compassionate reset. Acknowledge, "This is a moment of suffering. My heart is racing." Connect, "Parenting is hard. Every parent snaps sometimes. I am not alone." Kindness, "I'm exhausted. I'm human. I will apologize to my child, we will clean it up, and I will forgive myself so I can be present for the rest of the night." Notice how the kindness leads to action, the apology, while the criticism only leads to paralysis, the numbing. We all have parts of ourselves we are ashamed of, our jealousy, our greed, our anger, our laziness. We call this the shadow. Most of our mental turbulence comes from trying to hide the shadow. We spend so much energy pretending to be perfect that we are constantly on edge, waiting to be found out. The art of a quiet mind requires you to invite the shadow to tea. Instead of fighting your jealousy, you look at it with curiosity. "Ah, there's my jealous part. Why you here? What are you afraid of?" Usually, you'll find that the shadow part is just a scared child trying to protect you. When you validate the part, it stops shouting. You don't have to agree with the jealousy, you just have to acknowledge it. Silence comes when there are no more secrets inside your own head. Imagine you're about to give a big presentation. The critic is whispering that you're a fraud. Instead of trying to think positively, which usually doesn't work because your brain knows you're lying, try radical acceptance. Say, "Yes, I feel like a fraud right now. My hands are shaking. My mind is racing. This is exactly what a human looks like when they are doing something difficult. It's okay to be scared. The moment you accept the fear, the fight against the fear stops. And when the fight stops, the quiet returns. You can walk into that room with your fear rather than being controlled by it. The core lesson of Chapter 8 is a shift in identity. Most of the time, we identify with our noise. We think we are our mistakes. We think we are our anxiety. But the quiet mind knows that you are the sky. The inner critic is just a thunderstorm. The anxiety is just a passing cloud. The mistake is just a gust of wind. The sky is not damaged by the storm. It just holds it. Self-compassion is the act of returning to your sky nature. You realize that you are the vast, silent space in which all these parts are allowed to exist. When you stop being the storm and start holding the storm, you find a peace that no mistake can ever take away. You have made peace with the person in the mirror. You have turned your inner critic into an inner ally. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are starting to feel a depth of silence that you didn't think was possible in this busy world. But there is one more trap waiting for you. It's the trap of the finish line. You might be thinking, okay, I've got it. I'm settled. I'm done. But life has a way of throwing a curveball the moment you think you've mastered the game. How do you keep this peace for the long haul? How do you move from peak experiences of silence to a permanent trajectory of growth? In Chapter 9, we are going to explore flow states and the mastery of time. We're going to look at how to move from managing stress to optimizing life. I'm going to show you how to enter the zone at will and how to live in a state of effortless action. You've built the foundation. Now it's time to fly. Chapter 9. Flow states and the mastery of time. Have you ever been so deeply immersed in a project, a sport, or a hobby that the rest of the world simply vanished? You weren't thinking about your mortgage. You weren't worrying about your health. You weren't even aware of the passage of time. 2 hours felt like 10 minutes. You were perfectly tuned in, your actions were effortless, and your mind was completely, beautifully silent. In psychology, we call this the flow state or being in the zone. For most people, flow is a happy accident, a rare gift that happens once in a blue moon. But what if I told you that flow isn't a miracle? What if I told you it is a repeatable biological process? Today, we are going to discover that the quiet mind isn't just about sitting still on a cushion. It is the ultimate engine for high performance. We are going to learn how to enter the state where self-consciousness dies and mastery begins. It's time to stop fighting time and start flowing with it. Flow is the holy grail of positive psychology. It was first identified by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who described it as the state where a person is so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. When you are in flow, the mental turbulence we've been discussing all through this journey is physically impossible. Your brain actually undergoes a process called transient hypofrontality. This is a fancy way of saying that the self-monitoring part of your brain, the part that judges you, worries about you, and creates the noise, temporarily shuts down. In flow, you aren't thinking about what you're doing, you are what you're doing. This is the highest expression of a settled mind. It is stillness in motion. In the high-stakes US environment, we often try to force productivity. We drink more coffee, we grit our teeth, and we try to hustle our way to results. But flow cannot be forced, it can only be triggered. To move your quiet mind into your work, you need to set up 4 specific psychological conditions. 1. The challenge skill balance. Flow happens in the sweet spot between boredom and anxiety. If a task is too easy, your mind wanders, boredom. If a task is too hard, your amygdala hijacks your brain, anxiety. To find the quiet of flow, you must choose tasks that stretch you just enough, about 4% beyond your current ability. You want to be comfortably uncomfortable. 2. Clear goals and immediate feedback. Mental noise thrives on ambiguity. When you don't know exactly what you're trying to do, your brain fills the gap with worry. Flow requires a micro goal. Instead of writing a book, your goal is writing 500 words of chapter 9. When the goal is clear, the mind stops searching and starts executing. 3. The elimination of distractions. This is the non-negotiable for the American mind. You cannot enter flow if your phone is on the desk. Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes to return to deep focus after a single interruption. If you check your dings every 10 minutes, you are living in a permanent state of cognitive fragmentation. Flow requires a sacred space. 4. The merging of action and awareness. This is where our work on metacognition comes into play. You stop watching yourself work and you become the work. This happens when you stop focusing on the outcome, the money, the praise, the grade, and start focusing entirely on the process. When you enter flow, your brain releases a powerful mixture of 5 neurochemicals: dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, anandamide, and serotonin. This cocktail does 2 things for your quiet mind. It shuts down the inner critic. These chemicals act like a silencer for your default mode network. It increases pattern recognition. You see solutions that you could never see when you were stressed. This is why working harder, the American way, is often less effective than working quieter, the flow way. When your mind is silent, your brain is actually 500% more productive. You aren't doing more, you are interfering less. Let's look at 2 ways to handle a common US task: cleaning the garage. Person A, turbulent mind, does it while listening to a political podcast and worrying about their taxes. They hate every minute. They are distracted, they drop things, and they feel exhausted afterward. The noise made the work harder than it actually was. Person B, flow mind, turns off the noise. They set a clear goal: I'm going to organize these 3 shelves. They focus entirely on the sensation of the wood, the logic of the organization, and the rhythm of the movement. They enter a microflow. Time disappears. When they finish, they don't feel drained. They feel charged. The quiet mind isn't just for monks. It's for people who want to get things done without losing their soul in the process. In the US, we are slaves to chronos, clock time. We live by the second, the deadline, and the schedule. This creates a permanent state of time urgency, which is a primary driver of mental noise. The quiet mind learns to live in kairos, opportune time. This is the timelessness of the present moment. When you are in a state of time urgency, your brain is in the future. When you are in flow, your brain is in the now. To master time, you must stop managing time and start managing energy. If you have 90 minutes of deep work, flow, in your morning, you will accomplish more than someone who spends 8 hours in shallow work, distraction. A quiet mind doesn't need more time, it needs better presence. To train your mind to enter this quiet, high-performance state, you need a launch sequence. You shouldn't just start working. You should prepare the temple, the environment, clear the clutter. A messy desk is visual noise for the brain. The sensory trigger, use a specific focus playlist, alpha waves or lo-fi beats, or a specific scent like peppermint or lemon. This tells your amygdala, it's safe to go quiet now. We are working. The mind dump, take 2 minutes to write down every to-do that is currently floating in your head. Get the static onto paper so your brain doesn't have to loop it while you're trying to focus. The single task, choose one and only one thing to do. By following this sequence, you lure the quiet mind out of hiding. You make it easy for your brain to leave the turbulence and enter the stream. Imagine you're a salesperson about to make a call that could make or break your quarter. Usually, your mind is a mess of, what if they say no? What if I mess up the pitch? I need this money. The flow approach is to move your focus to the connection. Your clear goal is, I am going to deeply understand this person's problem for the next 10 minutes. The moment your goal shifts from getting self-focused noise to understanding task-focused quiet, your anxiety vanishes. You become present. You hear this subtext of what they are saying. You find the perfect response because you aren't thinking about it, you are flowing with it. You aren't just selling, you are being. The core lesson of Chapter 9 is the ancient concept of Wu Wei, or effortless action. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing everything with the maximum result and the minimum friction. Mental turbulence is friction. It's like driving with the emergency brake on. You're burning fuel, you're creating heat, but you aren't going very far. Flow is releasing the brake. When the mind is quiet, the action becomes a reaction to the moment. You stop trying to be great and you let the greatness that is already in your hardware come through. Mastery is the point where the worker and the work become one. You have moved from survival to flow. You are learning that the quiet mind isn't a retreat from the world. It is the ultimate way to engage with it. You are starting to experience a level of effectiveness and ease that feels like a superpower. But as we approach the end of this journey, we have to look at the big picture. What happens when the book ends? How do you ensure that this isn't just a temporary peak in your life, but a permanent transformation of your character? How do you keep the lighthouse burning for the next 20, 30, or 40 years? In our final chapter, The Architecture of a Permanent Quiet, we are going to look at legacy, consistency, and the lifelong path. I'm going to show you how to move from practicing a quiet mind to embodying a quiet mind. We are going to tie all the threads together, the biology, the beliefs, the boundaries, and the flow into a single, unshakable way of being. You've learned to fly. Now, it's time to find your destination. Chapter 10, The Architecture of a Permanent Quiet. You are standing at a crossroads. Behind you lies the version of yourself that lived in the static, the version that was yanked around by every notification, every snarky comment, and every 3 a.m. worry. Ahead of you lies a version of yourself that is fundamentally different. You aren't calm because life stopped being hard, you are calm because you stopped being the storm. But here is the final, most important question. How do you stay here? How do you make sure that tomorrow morning, when the world starts screaming again, you don't just slip back into the old turbulence? Today, we are going to build the final scaffolding of your new life. We are going to look at the legacy of silence and how to turn these lessons into an unshakable character. You have spent 10 chapters learning how to quiet your mind. Now, it's time to learn how to live as the quiet itself. In psychology, there is a difference between state and trait. A state is temporary, like the state of calm you feel after a massage. A trait is a permanent part of your personality, like being a calm person even in a crisis. Up until now, you have been practicing states. You've been using techniques to get quiet. But the goal of this journey is to move into trait-level mastery. This is where silence is no longer something you do. It is who you are. It becomes your unconscious competence. You don't have to remember to be still because your nervous system has been fundamentally recalibrated. To reach this level, we have to look at the 3 final pillars of permanent transformation: consistency, community, and contribution. The first pillar, radical consistency. Permanent change in the brain doesn't come from intensity, it comes from consistency. In America, we love sprints. We love the 30-day challenge, the weekend retreat, the big reset. But your brain doesn't rewire itself during a sprint. It rewires itself during the dull daily grind. If you want a permanently quiet mind, you must commit to the non-negotiables. Asterisk the morning foundation. 5 minutes of breathing and intention. The evening integration. 3 minutes of reflection. The anchor moments, the threshold, and first touch anchors we built in Chapter 5. If you do these for 66 days, the time science says it takes to form a permanent habit, they become part of your neural architecture. You stop fighting for peace and start resting in it. The second pillar, the community of stillness. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If your social circle is built on venting, gossip, and anxiety sharing, your quiet mind will not survive. In the US, we have a culture of collective anxiety. We bond over how stressed we are. We feel guilty if we aren't joining in on the complaining. To make your transformation permanent, you must perform a relational audit. You don't have to cut people out, but you must find a core of people who value consciousness over chaos. You need a silent support system. When you have even one person who can look at you and say, "You're in the turbulence right now, take a breath," your chances of staying in the quiet increase by 80%. The third pillar, the legacy of contribution. Here is the ultimate secret of the quiet mind. It is not for you. If you try to keep your peace just for your own comfort, it will eventually become stagnant. It will turn into another form of ego. True psychological stillness must be flow-through. You stay quiet so that you can be a better parent. You stay stable so that you can be a more effective leader. You stay clear so that you can solve problems for your community. When your peace has a purpose larger than yourself, it becomes unshakable. You aren't just staying calm for your own benefit, you are staying calm for the sake of everyone who depends on you. This is the heroic quiet. It is the strength that allows you to be the non-anxious presence in a world that is losing its mind. Before we part ways, let us look back at the map we have drawn together. If you ever feel lost, return to these 10 psychological landmarks. Recognize the turbulence. Realize that your noise is a habit, not an identity. You are the observer, not the thoughts. Hack the hardware. Use your breath to override your amygdala. Calm your body to clear your brain. Audit the architecture. Identify the not enough and imposter scripts. Change the belief to change the emotion. Starve the ego. Understand that your ego is addicted to drama. Practice being bored until you find the peace on the other side. Build the anchors. Weave stillness into your day through doorways, transitions, and the first touch of your phone. Embrace the hurricane. Reframe threats into challenges. Use the crisis to stress test your soul and become anti-fragile. Hold the sovereignty. Take back the remote control of your emotions. You are a lighthouse, not a reactor to other people's storms. Befriend the mirror. Stop the internal civil war. Self-compassion is the fuel for high performance, not a sign of weakness. Enter the flow. Use the zone to merge action and awareness. Stop hustling and start flowing. Live the legacy. Commit to consistency and use your peace as a gift to others. Imagine it is 6 months from now. You are at a family dinner or a high-pressure board meeting. Someone says something that would have triggered you 6 months ago. Your old self would have snapped. Your heart would have raced. You would have spent the next 3 days looping the argument in your head. But the new you is different. You feel the initial spark of anger. You are human after all, but you don't let it become a fire. You take a 3-second breath. You see the other person's turbulence with compassion. You respond with a radiant boundary. And 10 minutes later, you've forgotten about it. You are back in the now. You are enjoying your meal. You are present with your life. That is the win. Not the absence of the trigger, but the presence of the space. Neuroscience shows that through a process called long-term potentiation, your brain's synapses actually get stronger the more you use them. By choosing the quiet over and over again, you have physically paved a new highway in your brain. Your baseline of happiness and stability has moved. You have a new normal. Even if you have a bad day, your bad day now is still quieter than your best day used to be. You have successfully installed the art of a quiet mind into your very DNA. As we close, I want you to look around you. We live in a world of outrage. We live in a world of distraction. We live in a world where everyone is trying to scream louder than everyone else. In this world, silence is a superpower. By having a quiet mind, you are a subversive force for good. You are a reminder to everyone you meet that it is possible to be successful without being stressed. It is possible to be powerful without being loud. It is possible to be human without being hurried. Don't wait for the world to go quiet to be at peace. The world will never be quiet. The noise is part of the game. Your job isn't to silence the world. It's to build a sanctuary within yourself that is so solid, so deep, and so unshakable that the world's noise just bounces off of it like rain off a tin roof. You have completed this journey with Mindset Audiobooks. You now have the architecture. You have the psychology. You have the power. But remember, a script is just words until it is lived. I challenge you to take one thing from this book, just one anchor, one reframing, or one breath, and apply it to the next hour of your life. And then the hour after that. If you found value in this roadmap, share it with someone who is struggling with the noise. Let's create a quiet revolution together. Thank you for trusting me with your mental real estate. The snow has settled. The ghost has left the machine. The silent war is over. Now, go out and live your extraordinary, quiet, and powerful life. You are ready.